Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm part of the DevOps Bunker series of talks, and tonight we're going to talk about servant leadership and Agile listening project. There's two of us speaking tonight. I'm Andrew Jones, but I'd like to first of all introduce my friend and colleague, Michael Rudenko, who, following a very successful talk earlier in January, has joined with me in tonight's conversation. So, Michael, could you like to tell everybody a bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. That's most kind. Yes, as Andrew alluded to, back in January, I gave a presentation on the servant leadership within PMOs and program management. And with that, my background is predominantly around portfolio and program management. I'm battle scarred through and through, just as possibly Andrew is, just as much. We've delivered lots and lots of programs ranging from small projects through to multi-billion pound infrastructure programs that has required different styles and different types of delivery. And from that, one of the most important areas that we now appreciate is how you listen and how you work together with people. So with that quick description, I'll pass you back to Andrew.
Thanks, Michael. It seems many years ago since I first met Michael, when I actually joined the IT world and became the commercial director at Istel. And Michael and I actually met when I was part of the team rolling out patient administration systems during the first Gulf War, at a place called RAF Vegberg. And it was there Michael was responsible for comms as part of the Royal Signal. So it's lovely to be working with Michael again after such a long time. I understand we've actually bumped into each other several times since. And that's been during an interesting career I've had. After I joined Istel, we were bought out by AT&T, where I became responsible for their strategic planning. And after 4 years of that, I joined Professor David Bands and Paul Gregory, both who'd worked for the Defence Research Agency, to build a company called Recognition Systems, which became the first neural network stroke AI company to be listed on the London Stock Exchange, used in the coupons for Tesco's, used as credit card fraud detection, and I think most of us have suffered from it when you get a phone call or text message from a bank saying, is this you spending the money because you spent something out of your normal pattern? In 1999, I set up a company about IT dispute resolution, mainly because in the year 2000, many companies had forced new systems without doing proper project management. And it was as much as fault of the customer as it was of the supplier, because the supplier never really asked the customer what his needs were. Instead, what they did was replace one old system with another new system with exactly the same contact, exactly the same processes. And unfortunately, they didn't work. So as part of the dispute resolution, once we got both parties to agree that there was fault on both sides, we provided the project management. And that's when I first got into project management. Obviously, in those days, it was Prince. We've moved a long way since then. And being a lean exponent, I was very keen when the Agile Manifesto came out. I joined that following, and indeed was part of the team that installed a PMO, an Agile PMO, in Standard Bank in 2007, and that's gone extraordinarily well. Spread it right across 17 countries throughout Africa, and indeed into the London office and Jersey offices. And it was, I guess, over the last after the last couple of months where I've been working on major projects, I founded the Agile Listening Project. But it's all based on principles that come out of servant leadership and the Agile principles. So, Mike, can you just take us through again some of the main points of servant leadership, please?
Thank you, Andrew. I will. Yes, it's an interesting subject, but it's there, and the subject's around how you remove impediments. But more importantly, as Andrew's alluded to, it's about listening, listening with empathy as well, understanding what people really need, and then from that, commit to people, what you've learned, what you've listened to, and build that community of trust. You also need to have this awareness of what's around you. You need to know the strategy, you need to know the vision, but also, more so, you want to look at why people are there to work as well. Not only there to deliver, but they're there because they want to be part of that community delivering, and they've got their own impacts that's around there, whether that be social, economical, or outside of work. So you need to have that persuasion of helping them to understand what you're delivering and why you're delivering it, and have the foresight ultimately of going, let's have a conversation. Let's see where I can remove some of those impediments that seem to be frustrating you in your project management and delivery and coding career. So, in a nutshell, that's what it's about. Being a servant leader is helping people be a part of the team and nurture and grow the team. So that's just a quick 2 minutes about that. Back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, Michael. One of the servant leadership principles came out way before the listening, Agile, sorry, manifesto came out. But the Agile manifesto is actually predicated on having these types of characteristics. And if I go through the Agile principles of collaboration, transparency, leadership, and so on, they are all impacted about every single person in the team becoming a servant leader, not just the project manager, not just the program manager or the senior exec, but every single person. Because if we then talk about, Michael talked about how listening was so important. We talk about collaboration. You know, I hear people saying, "Oh, he's a creative. Just leave him alone and get on with it." But unless he's collaborated and listened to what the customer needs are from the product manager, unless he understands the nuances that are required, it's very, very difficult for him to create anything that will actually meet the outcome that we actually need to achieve. Collaboration, that is listening to each other, understanding each other's viewpoints, is so important as part of the creative aspect of any product growth, delivery, enhancements, whatever. The next point is transparency, and transparency, quite frankly, is about honesty. Uh, if at the end of the day, people don't feel as though they can be honest amongst each other, then no project will succeed. And transparency means being able to talk to each other. And I come on to it a bit later, because there needs to be a culture within the organisation that allows for transparency, whether being honest and putting your hand up when things go wrong or whatever. Leadership, we talked about with servant leadership, it's an aspect everybody needs to get involved in, not just the project manager. Everybody is ultimately a leader. As we know, customer focus, well, if we come from the lean background where Agile came from, at the end of the day, it's meeting customer needs. And we can only do that if we actually listen to what the customer actually wants. I've been part of the Agile Listening Project, I'll come on to it later. We actually talked to customer focus group leaders. And they have been saying that there seems to be a lot of issues these days where digital surveys are done and people score between 1 and 5. But actually, that isn't listening to a customer's needs. Quite often, it's not until you engage the customer in conversation do you really get to what they need. And it's that conversation, giving the customer the opportunity to talk, to interact. Do you actually get to the bottom of what he really needs? And a customer-focused leader, customer-focused team leader, is taught specific listening skills, and we'll come on to that. Understanding, well, if you keep on interrupting the other person and not listening to them properly, you'll never understand what they're actually getting at. And we'll come on to what understanding, what I really mean by understanding, when we talk about how we listen to somebody, and then how we might then reflect what that person's saying and ask them questions so you get a full understanding. Ultimately, you all need to agree, and you might have heard of True North. I know Mike Burrows, Steve McKenzie of Agenda Shift put great store about ensuring that everybody understands what True North is. What everybody has agreement what the outcome is going to be, what the needs are, the outcomes are, how we're going to handle the obstacles, and ultimately provide a solution to meet those obstacles and deliver the outcome. And lastly, well, without respect with each other, a team's not going to succeed. So if I can move on to the next slide, please, Michael.
Yeah, and just before we do, you
Yes.
mentioned about respect there, Andrew.
Yeah.
You're right. Respect is earned, it's never demanded. And if you're listening correctly, yeah, you'll gain that respect, won't you, Andrew? That's what we found.
I think that really meant, so I should have added that, and it was very kind of you to interject there, Michael, because that is such a key aspect, yes.
Yeah. Moving on.
So, what makes successful teams? It's we've all been there when we've worked in a successful team, and there's certain aspects about it that when you make friends, and on some of my most successful projects, I've had those friends for years and years and years. There was something that sort of just set you off. It was like playing for a rugby team that's won a major cup. And when you start to analyze why that team was successful, I think the first on the list, and most probably the most arguably the most difficult to achieve, is psychological safety. Psychological safety is about environment. It's about creating a safe culture in which team members feel safe to say anything they want to say, that their ideas aren't going to be poo-pooed, that they feel as though they're being encouraged by other team members to be innovative. You know, it's almost about saying to people, come on, voice your opinions and discuss them rather than be dismissive of them. If you can create that culture, that psychological safety, one, I mean, we all know in today's current world, we talk about mental illnesses at work. If people have that psychological safety, it helps really with the mental condition of every member of the team, but it also gives them excitement and the ability to feel they can contribute. Dependability. Dependability is about accountability. It's about trust. It's about saying every person in this team has something to contribute. Let's face it, in most project teams, we bring in experts, whether it's a DevOps expert, whether it be an SME, whether it be that everybody's got their own expertise. And we need to be able to depend on each other. And dependent on each other in good and bad times. So if somebody feels that they're having a problem, they know they can put their hand up and say, guys, I've got a problem here. I'm depending on you to help me out. Likewise, if somebody says they're going to do something, then we actually depend on them getting it done on time and to quality. To be able to do that, I think every team needs structure and clarity. And before every kickoff session, what I've tried to do over the years is actually set down some ground rules about people's behavior, the structure of how we're going to hold our meetings, whether we're going to use Kanban, whether we're going to use something else, which tools, agree which tools, because not every project uses the same tools. But the structure and clarity is there so people to know which forum they can speak at and be listened to, and which forums there are for decision-making processes and so forth and so forth. It's very important. The other thing is that it's very important that you believe there's meaning in what you do. Nobody wants to work in a job or organization where ultimately there's no purpose to what they do or no meaning in what they do. So it's absolutely, it's very important to get them to understand what the meaning of the project is, what the outcome is going to be. And to that end, we actually do things like, before the project starts, we say, how are we going to celebrate it? Why are we going to celebrate it? Who are we going to invite to celebrate the success of this project? Because by asking those sort of questions, you start to understand what impact you're making to the organization and to the customer. And that impact you need to define before you kick off. You need to say, I'm doing this and I'm going to achieve this impact. And if a team understands that, they're far more focused in the way they operate. Okay, if I go to the next slide, please, Michael. So we talked a lot about the principles and about servant leadership and saying how important listening is. And whilst everybody is trained how to speak, how to present, people get sent on PowerPoint courses and that, I haven't come across anybody as yet who sends their staff on listening skills. And listening as a skill is very important. And I've got a little exercise I want us to go through. That will maybe at the end of it you'll see my point about how you can best listen, and I'll then take you through some of the things we need to consider when we are listening. So I hope you've all got pen and paper at hand. Give you a couple of seconds while if you haven't got one, you grab one, and then if you could put your hands up, and then Michael can tell me when everybody's hands are up, and we can start with the exercise. Okay, I can see most of you have got them. Michael, how's it going?
Yeah.
Has everybody got their hands up yet?
Yeah, there's a few hands coming in now. So
good.
Yeah, I think we're there now, Andrew. Yeah.
Okay, then let's start. Let me show you what the exercise is going to entail. And if we, on our next slide, Michael, if I can have all the points up. And all of them, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
There we are. Right. What? Oh, steady on, boy, steady on. Thank you. I'm going to read out 5 sentences. I'm going to read them out one by one. I want you to listen to the sentence, then pause for about 5 seconds. It doesn't have to be 5 seconds exactly, but just make sure there's a pause. And then I want you to write the sentence down. And this is the important bit. I want you to write that sentence word for word. And once you've completed the sentence, I want you to raise your hand when you've finished writing. And then I'm going to, when everybody's raised their hand, I'm going to put the sentence up on the screen. And I want you to be very honest. If you've got it wrong, I'd like you to raise your hand, please. Don't feel ashamed, but just put your hand up. I'll just let you know before we start, very, very, very few people actually manage to get all 5 sentences correct. And be honest with yourself during this exercise, because I think you'll find it quite valuable at the end of it. Okay, let's go to sentence number 1. Let me just make sure I've got the sentences up so I can read them properly. Okay, the first sentence. Everyone at the game wore a red shirt. Okay, is everybody's hand up, Michael?
Just getting there. Yep, there we go.
Okay, let's put that sentence up on the screen.
Okay.
And so those of you who've got it wrong, and I hope not many of you have got this one wrong, please put your hand up. Let's hope there's 0.
Yeah, there's 0.
Good. Okay. Okay, that was a very simple sentence to kick off, just get you into practice. Let's come to the second sentence. You ready? The power went out due to a big storm last Monday morning. Okay, hands are going up. Just let me know when they're all up, please, Michael.
Yep. There we go.
Let's put this one up on the screen then. Let's see. You must check it word for word. Okay, if there's one word out of place, I'm afraid you need to put your hand up.
No hands.
Oh, well, we got a good team in tonight, Michael. Yeah. Okay. And I bet we don't get the same result on the next one, but let's wait and see. Okay. This is the next sentence. He usually eats 2 soft tacos and a burrito whenever he goes to Taco Bell. Okay.
There we go. I'll bring that up.
Okay. Oh, we've got 1 or 2 hands. Yeah. 3, 4 hands up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you some stories. Some people swear I said McDonald's and things like that before. Okay, let's go on to the fourth one. The 4 young children spent the whole afternoon playing on the swings and slides at the local park.
Okay.
Hands are going up. They're
Yeah.
all up. They're all up. Okay. Okay, let's put it up on the screen.
Yeah. I've got a couple come up straight away.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you didn't get that.
I think we're getting to the stage now where we've got very few people in, if any. Yeah. Can I just ask somebody? Oh, yeah, we've got 2 people still in.
Yeah.
Okay, well done, David. Okay, let's go for the 5th sentence. After running 4 miles on the beach, the young woman walked a further mile in order to cool down and then went home. Give you a bit longer to write this down.
There you go. People are putting their hands up. They finished.
Yeah, is that everybody, Michael?
Yeah. I'll put it up.
Okay, let's put it up. Okay, how many people got this one wrong?
Oh, there's no hands.
No hands. Everybody got it right.
Oh, sorry. No hands as in no hands saying they got it wrong. Sorry. Yeah, they got it wrong. Definitely. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. As I say, it's very rare that all 5 people. I can see 1 or 2 people got it right, but they've got ones wrong before. Very few people get the 5 wrong, and this is an interesting thing because if we go on to the next slide, please, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm going to take everybody through 5 basic elements of active listening, and I think you'll find that they will relate to the fact why you couldn't remember certain things. Let's go through the first one. Paying attention is absolutely critical. And sometimes there's things that distract you, and part of the reason why we played the music of Countdown was it can be a bit of a distraction. You think you've got it in your head, and all of a sudden that blinking music starts, and all of a sudden you can lose it. So what do we need? We remember that it's very important to give the speaker that undivided attention. It helps when you're in the same office to look at the speaker directly. If you're on Zoom or Teams or whatever, it's as important to have the video cameras on, I believe, and look at the camera directly. Make it feel as though the speaker is actually feels as though he's being listened to. The other thing is, can we please put aside distracting thoughts like, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. A cold beer a bit later would be nice. I wonder if there's a cold beers in the fridge. Put those ideas, try and put them to one side, and it does take practice to do that. The other thing is, well, I've said environmental factors. That's the music playing, or it could be lots of things going on. One of the biggest problems we have with open offices is the fact that it's very difficult to concentrate sometimes, which is why wearing headphones can help if you're on Zoom meetings and things like that. The next thing is try and listen to the speaker's body language. In our courses, we teach about this body language. There's some misconceptions like folding arms is people being defensive. That's not quite true, despite what lots of people say. But try and understand whether the person feels confident about what he's saying, or whether he's throwing out the idea and he's hoping for a reaction and comments back. But try and interpret what he's trying to say. If he's saying it with passion, maybe we need to be very careful then how we respond to him. And the next thing is, please be respectful. Refrain from having side conversations. If you're in a large meeting room and you turn to a mate and go, he's talking a load of rubbish or whatever phrase you might use, try not to do that. Try to make sure everybody is directing their eyesight onto the speaker and making him feel as though he's being listened to. Can we have the second slide, please? We need to prove we're listening to them so that the speaker feels comfortable. And one way might be to nod occasionally, or, sort of wrinkle your nose as if to say, yeah, I know what you're still talking about. Think about if you're leaning forward, or your shoulders are back and you're leaning forward, you're much more open and inviting to the speaker. You'll feel more comfortable about alluding more in depth to what he's talking about. And, by doing that, you're going to encourage the speaker to speak more, but encourage him also by going, yeah, I understand, yeah, good. It's about trying to get the most as you possibly can out of the speaker so you better understand him. Point 3, please. Once the person has stopped speaking, and it's important that you let the speaker speak without interruption. And what you must do is don't think about what your personal thoughts are and why you're going to challenge what the speaker's saying. Try and understand what he's saying and why he is saying it. What's important is you need to, as the listener, you are trying to understand the point he's making. Some people aren't very eloquent in their speaking, so you have to listen to them even harder. And then you need to reflect on what he's saying. And to do that, once he's finished, we can actually paraphrase what he says and say to him, I hear you said X, Y, and Z. Why do you believe X, Y, and Z will meet this outcome? What you don't do is ask questions in a blunt, direct, aggressive style. What you're trying to do is to ask questions to clarify points, not to attack the speaker. And in each case, just make sure you summarize what the speaker says, then ask the question. Because in your summarization, the speaker might say, no, you got that bit wrong. Your summarization is wrong. Let me explain that further. Have the next point, please, Michael. It is so important not to be judgmental. That psychological safety we talked about before is so important. People need to feel that they can say what they want to say without fear of being judged, without fear of being condemned, seen as a nincompoop, labelled as a wazzock or whatever you might say. What you really want people to do is let that speaker finish. Don't interrupt him with arguments. But after he's finished speaking, go back to what I just said about proper interrogation through questions that aren't done in an aggressive way. Next point, and this is where we talk about responding appropriately. I come back to the point about respect. Active listening is about having a model for respect. It's about gaining information and then challenging, with that information, challenging your own views. In that sort of environment, then you can be candid, you can be open. You might say to the person, I hear what you say, I believe I understand, but would you consider this particular thing? So you might respond to him with something differently and say, in your opinion, would these be alternative solutions? Might these be an alternative way about going from the way you suggest it? And the bloke who's spoken might say, gosh, that's a great idea. But the whole idea is that you're starting to bounce ideas off each other. And as we talked about earlier in the Agile principles, this is when you start to get collaboration really working. And it's one interesting point that a neurosurgeon once said to me. He said, Andrew, when you've got a team of people who actively listen properly, you'll find that the pulses between their neurons start to synchronize. Because all of a sudden you've got people starting to come to a common consensus. They're starting to come to agreement. And the electrical pulses, believe it or not, because they fitted people up with these electrical pulse scanners on their heads, they can actually see when teams are working effectively because they're listening properly and responding properly. All of a sudden, their neurons and the pulses between them, their synapses, start to act together. They start to act as an orchestra. Okay, let's move on, Michael. So it was towards the end of last year that I was doing an agile coaching session. In fact, an agenda shift one, and I know quite a few of you will have heard of Agenda Shift, a book and a set of courses produced by a bloke called Mike Burrows, but that several of us have worked on, Steve McKenzie, myself, and a few others. And I decided that one of the aspects of agile coaching was not being addressed properly. And then what I wanted to do was actually start to promote listening skills as a serious element of servant leadership, business transformation, and project management. I wanted to put together a set of courses that would help people prior to the kickoff projects to learn how to listen properly, so that as we start to work on the discovery and elaboration stages of any project, the ideas can be floated around, they can be questioned, they can get to agreement on true north, they can agree on the obstacles and who's going to be responsible for sorting those obstacles out and coming back. And it was all about teaching people about, if you work in this fashion and we have respect for each other, the likelihood is we're going to have a successful team. Unfortunately, I often get phone calls to say, well, our project's in a mess. It's going nowhere. Teams are fighting. Will you come in and sort things out? And on the first meeting, I get everybody in, and we have a fairly frank and open discussion on why people think the project's failed. And in that session, we start seeing loads of people with sloping shoulders. It's always somebody else's fault. At the end of it, I summarize and sort of say, guys, when you're in a team, you're all responsible for the outcome. Not any one individual can be responsible for the failure of a project. It's the team that fails, not the individual. So can we stop blaming each other? We teach them some agile listening skills, and we try and improve the psychological well-being of the whole team. And really, quite often by the end of that session, you'll be amazed how all of a sudden they're talking to each other. They're all saying, yeah, we must help each other, because if one fails, all fails. Okay, so that's the objectives of the Agile Listening Project, is to actually create courses to help people. So next slide, please, Michael. I'm actually trying to create a community of Agile listeners, and one of the things I've done is I've got a whole load of badges printed, and if you send me your address, I'll send you out a badge. It's about wearing them in meetings, and people saying, well, what is an Agile listener? And it says, well, I'm actually part of a community that believe in Agile listening. I believe we need to have Agile listening courses to help us all work as a team. And I'm an Agile listener. I'm going to say, are you? Because it's so important that we get teams to start becoming active listeners, and therefore what I call an Agile listener. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Michael. We've actually, in conjunction with Broadlight, who's our sponsor, through Broadlight, where we put together an Agile listening course, which takes about 1 day. And these support some of the other coaching courses that we give on Agile transformation, which takes you all the way from discovery, elaboration, mapping to delivery. And we also try and help people deliver their servant leadership, and we've got a 1 day course that does that as well. So we'd be obviously very interested if any of you would like to take up the offer of doing these courses. And if a lot of individuals want to do it, we'll put together a course for all the individuals. But if there's companies out there, obviously we actively encourage program managers, project managers to take up this Agile listening course, this 1 day course, before the initial kickoff. And of that, you get the stakeholders in there, you get the product manager in there, the SMEs in there, the customer focus manager, if you can get him in there, the DevOps people. Get them all to understand where we're coming from, so that we can actually get people to work in a safe environment and hopefully producing successful teams. So thank you very much for that. Michael, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Not at this moment, actually. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we got a couple of Q&As. I can see one from David here. David wants to know, how do you handle the person in a meeting that continually interrupts, is continually argumentative, and totally disrespectful? Well, Michael, you and I have had a couple of projects where we've had people who don't respect each other. And we've come across one project manager not too distant past who believes he's the expert in everything. And he's ended up with a team, many of whom have actually left because they felt that frustrated. It is so important when you get somebody like that. And this is what I'm saying. I'm an Agile listening badge, and that person asks why you're wearing it. You can say, well, it's because we need to stop this sort of behavior. We need to stop the aggressive behavior, stop the interruptions, let people speak, make sure everybody feels psychologically safe. And then we might just deliver true north, which is what we all should be agreeing on, coming up with creative solutions to the obstacles, and then allowing people to use their individual expertise to deliver successful projects. So yes, call that person out. Wear your badge with pride. I'm an Agile listener. If you're a project manager and you've got somebody in your team, it might be a project sponsor. Quite often we find senior executives are the ones that need to be reminded of the principles of servant leadership and active listening. And that's why I believe it's that important that they attend that initial project list Agile listening course prior to the kickoff date. So they can be called out as well safely, without fear of reproach. You know, you can always say, hang on a minute, you remember that listening thing? Let that other person speak and let him finish, please. And usually senior executives, once they've gone through the process, are far more compliant. And if you do it with humour, you'll find that you can actually settle the problem. Are there any other people? Michael, have you seen any other questions coming up?
No, I haven't, I'm afraid. No.
Okay. There we are. Well, over to you, Michael.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Andrew, for a wonderful demonstration of it all once more. Really good to hear these things again. We will be doing more of these, so please do watch out on the meetups. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you very much.